And I'm going to make sure that we are recording this. And David, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in this whole sales arena and become an expert in prospecting here?
Well, I mean, so expert, we're all learners, right? We always got to approach this with beginner's mind every day. But no, like most of us in sales, I got into sales by accident. I started my career as a research scientist in engineering and ended up going to sales at the turn of the dot-com boom, joined my first startup, and haven't looked back from there. I think about sales very much in the same way of science, in that there's rules, it's super engaging, it's a never-ending quest. And certainly sales has probably changed a lot more in many ways in science over the last, never mind 20 years, but even 5 or 10 years. I've done 4 startups. I spent 5 years at Salesforce. And the number one thing that I love to do in the world is learn. I love to learn. And sales for me and for my brain is a bit of a chew toy. And so so after almost 20 years in the field, I decided that I wanted to pursue my love of teaching the art and science of modern selling, breaking it down into its components scientifically, but kind of harmonizing that with the empathy piece as well, to make sure that we are always on the side of our customers and servicing their needs first. I have been, as you can imagine, as a VP of sales, I was ground zero for all sorts of sales and business development prospecting. And so I've kind of been on both sides. I sent out the army to do battle, and I've also been on the receiving end. So that's kind of what I talk about when I say empathy. But yeah, I'm excited, man. I love waking up every day to help build armies of the kind of salespeople that your customers will love. That's what I do.
I love it. I love it. And I've learned so much from you, just taking it from that scientific perspective and really using data, but also marrying that with the human side. So I just enjoy doing these things, and I can't wait to get started. Infomercials is something that, you kind of chuckle about, but what we found and what you found in your research and broken out here for us is how you can actually use that formula to set more meetings with your sales development messaging. So let's dive in. Dave, these infomercials are hilarious. I mean, we got the Chia Pet, the Bedazzler, the Clapper, all these things. What's that? Oh, the Sham Wow, all these products. And it's like, what is it about infomercials that's actually relevant to our messaging in the sales development world?
Yeah. Wow. I love how you went old school with all these, I was thinking Magic Bullet and Miracle Blade, and you went all the way back to the Chia Pet and the Clapper and the Thigh Master there. So that's amazing. But yeah, you know what? I think when it comes to selling, the objective was always to figure out how to get people's attention. People operate on this concept, a physics concept I like to talk about a lot, is inertia, which means they have this status quo bias. They think that everything they're doing is mostly fine until they get knocked off by some kind of disruptive force. And infomercials do the best job in the world at mobilizing that force to knock people off their game. And so you're sitting there on your couch and you're watching the infomercial. Man, Chia Pet, I just can't get my eyes off that. But you're watching the infomercial and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like almost walking through Costco. You're walking through Costco and you see things, you're like, I didn't even know I needed that, but it looks pretty cool and it's on sale. And so infomercials do a really great job. In modern selling, so much of the time that we should be spending as sellers is trying to figure out how to get the attention of our target buyers. We spend a lot of time training ourselves on how to do great discovery and negotiation. And my point of view is that you should be so lucky to be doing discovery with a prospect, because before that prospect allows you to sit down with them and have that conversation, you need to get their attention. And infomercials do a fantastic job in a very entertaining but also formulaic way of getting your attention and getting you to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, exactly. And they're able to sell these products that, they're kind of dubious. I mean, we've all bought these products before, and they sell millions and millions of these. And it's like, how do they break through the noise and actually get us to pick up the phone and give them a call? And I love, a lot of this webinar is based on a couple of articles that Dave has on his CerebralSelling website. We'll link to those. And you actually break down a formula that you've identified that these infomercials are using. Now, this was new to me because I kind of subtly understood what they were doing, but how do you break down this formula?
Yeah. So, the real trick or the real key when you're trying to get someone's attention is that you need to be able to make them follow along with your argument. We've all been in the situation where we're either listening to a sales pitch and we're thinking to ourselves, maybe I'm dumb. I'm just not getting it. We've also had that experience where we go to a website of a vendor and we take a look at it and it's got all this stuff on it. And we're sitting there thinking, I don't know what the hell they do. I can't figure it out. Right. And so the magic of infomercials and their formula is they take you through this kind of very simple, and it can take 5 seconds, but it's a very structured and methodical argument. And so do you want me to break it down for you here?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's very simple. So, as you see here, there's 4 parts, actually really 3 parts. The 4th part is when they insert their product. But the first 3 is, here's the big problem that exists in the world today. And I'll go into that a little bit. They present the ideal solution to the problem, and then they talk about the challenges associated with that solution. And then your product or their product is the solution to all 3 of those things. And so, for example, if I were to sell you a piece of home exercise equipment, I might say, hey, here's the problem. You want to lose weight and get in shape, right? Well, that's the problem. The ideal solution, and there's no shortcut to losing weight and getting in shape. You got to go to the gym, 5 days a week and exercise vigorously, and you got to eat well. Everyone knows what that is. That's the ideal solution. But for most people, that ideal solution is actually quite difficult. And it's difficult because gym memberships are expensive. The gym is inconvenient. People don't want to go to the gym. And that's the 3rd part. That's what makes the ideal solution so difficult or less desirable. And now you are poised. So to kind of let me put it all together, I might say, hey, Dave, you want to lose weight and get in shape, right? Well, the best way to do that is to go to the gym 5 times a week and exercise vigorously. The problem is you don't have time to do that. And gym memberships are expensive and the place is inconvenient. I have a solution. Now, the beauty of the infomercial is that once I've gotten to that point, you don't even know what I'm selling. It could be a piece of equipment. It could be a pill. It could be a new diet system. It could be all sorts of things. But as I'm telling you this story, you're leaning in. So yes, I am interested. It's almost like you're driving on the highway and there's all these kind of off ramps that you could take, but you're not taking them because you're just really, really focused on the argument. And so that's the magic of the infomercial. And in fact, the way I think about pitching is that you want to kind of take the same approach with the pitch of your product. We can get into that in a second. But most people, when they pitch their product, they start out with, here's what it is, and here's how great it is. It's email marketing, and it means that you can send emails to whoever you want and chamber them up. And you really haven't showcased the problem. In the infomercials, you typically see when they start out, there's, if you think about the infomercials for the ones for like the Miracle Blade or like these super sharp knives, do you remember how they start, Dave? How those knife commercials typically start?
Yeah, well, one thing I want to point out, they start out in black and white.
Yep.
So it's like really depressing, right? And then they're trying to cut through a tomato and it's just going all over the place. And the person looks really sad.
That's it. Well, it's funny. I mean, in sales, one of the things that we used to train on years ago was, not to digress, but was whiteboarding. Whiteboarding is almost this lost art because we present so many presentations virtually now online that we don't have a chance to get up in front of someone and deliver a whiteboard presentation. When in fact, whiteboard presentations are very, very powerful because all of the content that gets shared comes from our head, and the client seeing it says, oh my gosh, it's all in this person's head. This is really amazing. But one of the tricks to a great whiteboard technique is the use of color. You use different color of whiteboard markers, and we see the same things in slides, but red is antagonistic or negative, and green is positive, and very calming. And so that black and white graininess is obviously not by accident, right? Everything looks depressing. What they're trying to do is they're trying to paint a very stark contrast between the current state and the future state. Maybe even making the future state look a little bit worse because the buyer on the other side has that status quo bias. They're sitting on the couch or wherever they are, thinking to themselves, my life is good. I don't need this. And so the purpose of the infomercial is to show them how how much suffering they have, why they can't cut that tomato. And so that is a concept that works really well. It's not unique to infomercials. We were saying earlier, so Dan Pink, who I'm a big fan of, is an author and speaker, and he wrote a book. He's written a couple books. One is called Drive, and one is called To Sell as Human. I think I have it actually right here beside me, just by happenstance. And he talks about the new ABCs of selling. He talks about, everyone remembers the Alec Baldwin speech. No one's actually ever seen that movie, by the way. They've only seen those 7 minutes of footage. But he talks about the ABCs of selling, always be closing. And Dan Pink talks about the new ABCs of selling, which are attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. Clarity, that third piece, is the piece that draws that stark contrast. Clarity is, let me show you the problem with what you're doing today very, very clearly, right next to the future state where everything is, rose-colored. And so back to infomercials, do a very good job of that. And that's why at the beginning of the infomercial, they try to paint that stark contrast between, what you're probably doing, even though it's a little bit, you said with tongue-in-cheek and hyperbole, and what the future state could be.
Yeah, and one thing, here's another example. You eat too many processed foods, it's destroying your health. The solution, more fresh fruits and vegetables. The problem with typical juicers, see, this is what was really interesting in the breakdown of the formula, in that there is already a solution out there. But the problem with the solution that's out there is X, Y, and Z. That's what I hadn't really thought of, because they always put in that thing, well, sure, you can use a typical juicer, but it's messy, it's time consuming, Instead, bam, look at how awesome our thing is. Pick up the phone and call, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the idea. Now, we almost, the pick up the phone and call, here's our thing. Infomercials definitely do spend a lot of time positioning the features and the value of what they do. But in some ways, that's another set of magic. If everyone watching this just takes away one thing from this conversation, it's to really nail that upfront part and to paint that contrast. Exactly like you said here. Hey, you know what? People want to lose weight and get in shape. You want to get healthy. The secret is this thing, eating fruits and juices. And the critical thing about those first two statements is that they have to be, think about them. These are universal truths. No one is going to listen to those things and say, yeah, I don't have that problem. Yeah. Like, well, no one's going to say, yeah, processed foods are bad for you. I don't agree with that. You want to lose weight and get in shape. Of course, everyone wants to be in shape, right? So the key is start out with a universal truth. We were saying before that there is an article, I don't know when it came out, it was kind of in recent times, and it was called The Greatest Sales Deck, or Greatest Sales Presentation Ever Made. And it actually is very similar to this formula. The formula that they advocate using is this idea that there is a universal truth that exists in the world, whether or not our product exists. Right? That's why, as we talk about these 4 bullets, the fact that we have a product that solves that solution, solves that problem, is actually besides the point. The point is that this problem exists, and we know what the solution is, but that solution for most people is hard. And everyone's kind of looking for a shortcut. But the idea is that we need to, again, paint that stark contrast and talk about things that, imagine if you were kind of driving down the road, and you're on the highway and there's all these off-ramps, and that's the way selling is, right? At any point, a prospect can say, hey, you know what? I'm pulling the ripcord. I'm checking out of this. Like, this does not resonate with me. If you step through this kind of approach at every step of that conversation, your prospect should be smiling and nodding and saying, yes, I do want to lose weight. And yes, going to the gym is a pain and it's expensive and hard to get to. All right.
Yeah.
What are you selling?
Okay. So, and just to recap that, so how do we make it relevant? Most of the people, listening to this are probably selling technology, or they're SDRs trying to get technology appointments booked. So just to recap, you're illustrating the pain associated with the current state. And again, these are all outlined in the article that I'll link to. And then outlining that desired future state and the path to get there, highlighting the risks, involved, and then suggesting a simpler alternate solution.
Yeah.
So how do we make this relevant toward another example for, if you're selling sales technology? Ooh, that got a little messed up. Let me help you with that. Sorry about that, guys.
No, it looks okay there.
Yeah. Live TV, folks.
Yeah.
Anyways, so say you're selling a sales technology, and I thought this was a great example that you put in to the presentation. So your sales team is losing business because X, Y, and Z. The solution is getting mobile access, but then the problem with creating that on a customized basis is X. And the good news is, ding. And again, like you said, even if you just nail the top 2 or the top 3 bullet points on here, because you first are doing a great job on identifying what the issue is, and then identifying what the issue with the current solution is, you're way ahead of the game, in that most people in their emails or voicemails start with bullet point number 4. Right, Dave?
That's right. Yeah. The problem is, as let's say in the startup world, right, where we're trying to change the world and we have all these new ideas, or maybe you're out there and you're an entrepreneur and you have this great idea. That idea is your baby and you're so close to it, right? And so you go on to your sales calls and you go onto your website and you talk about all of the great features of your app and all the things it does. Meanwhile, someone who's hearing your pitch for the first time or visiting your website is looking at it and thinking to themselves, I don't get it. Like, what is the problem?
Care.
Yeah, like and that's the attention, right? Like, maybe if I understood the problem that you solve and internalized that I had that problem, then I'd be more interested in listening to you. But you haven't really drawn that clarity, and how are you explaining what you do? The biggest kind of joke, and I think everyone's kind of guilty of this, is that if I went to your sales team or your BDR team or SDR team, and I put them each in a room and I spoke to them one-on-one, and I said, Dave, your company, Tenbound, what do you guys do? And I recorded each and every person. Would I hear the same thing? I almost guarantee you that I would not. And it doesn't mean that everyone can't have their own unique flair or their own unique kind of spin on your value proposition. But the idea is that we're so close to the problem and so close to our technology that we don't oftentimes step back. And that's really the point. We talk about empathy, is having empathy for our customers. They are busy. They are focused on other things. They're focused on their own problems. They don't have time to step down, like to stop and figure out what the heck it is you do, especially when most people sound the same. Most vendors sound the same. They say, oh, we're going to help you. You want to lose weight and get in shape. I might say, we're going to help you increase your effectiveness and reduce your churn and increase your conversion rates and, reduce your customer attrition. And like everyone says that, right? So starting out with, here is the process that we help you solve that exists today and how we make it easier. For years, Salesforce would say, it's really important to be able to run your business from your phone, right? Like that was their belief statement. And so imagine how that would sound in an infomercial setting, right? Like you might say, look, you're really busy. You're on the road a lot. You're not sitting in front of your computer all the time. And yet you still need to manage your business. Those are the first 2 statements. Well, the solution could be to be able to manage your business remotely, right? Or manage your business from wherever the applications you're already in. The problem is that those integrations don't exist. The problem is that you don't have any way of doing that today. Yeah. The good news is we have, insert product here. And so most of this pitch is very much focused on the customer and their problem, a little bit less than our solution. You can pitch your solution all day long once you have their attention. The purpose of the infomercial formula is to get people's attention.
Yeah, I love it. And like I said, it's a war for attention nowadays. And it's becoming harder and harder to get on their radar screen. And, I envision, with the Salesforce example, but, back in the day, you had to run your business remotely. There was a solution out there, which was like the hotel office center, which probably most people don't even know what that is anymore.
The business
But,
center. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, the business center where, you know, you had to like use all these funky tools and you couldn't get in because your key card didn't work. And it was like, you know, that third bullet point, hey, the solution that we have right now, the business center, sucks and nobody likes using it. So now I can run my whole business from my phone. Wow, that's amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an amazingly nimble framework that you can use. And so, you know, now it's your turn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody on the call, you know, think about, first of all, you know, get in your prospect's head. And, you know, the one takeaway from the call today is, you know, brainstorm 5 of the main problems that you're pretty sure that those people have in their daily life. And better yet, as you mentioned, Dave, is universal problems that don't even necessarily have to do with your solution. I mean, just get them down on paper so that you can get the juices flowing. If you can't think of any, go talk to your product marketers, go talk to the CEO. I mean, you know, why did you start this company? What problem are you trying to solve, right? And then the next little bit of homework, sit down, how are they solving those today, right? And then, you know, make another list, 5 or 6 of those. How are they solving those problems today? And then finally, what sucks about the way that they're solving those problems today? That's going to be that's the killer app, I think, from learning about infomercials. You know, they are solving the problem today, but what really sucks about that? And then how does finally, you know, sort of the last thing is, how does your product or service improve their lives, make it better, and stuff like that? Right,
absolutely. Dave? Yeah. And you know what I mean? You can use this in all sorts of contexts. Certainly you can use it in a discovery setting. You can use it over email. So let's say I had the pleasure of, you know, sitting down with you, Dave, and we had this conversation. I can say, hey, look, typically when I work with, you know, people like you, I hear one of 3 things. You know, they have a problem with A, problem with B, problem with C. Typically what they've tried to do to solve that problem is X, but what they found is that it's difficult or expensive or time consuming because of Y. Does that resonate with you? And the idea is that if it doesn't, then we probably shouldn't be talking today, you know, like, and I should be shutting up my shop. But that's the idea. It could be a great opener. You can use it in your marketing. Certainly, you can use it in your outreach. You know, hey, you know, typically when I speak to people like you or people in your industry, here's what I hear. They've tried this, they've tried that. Are you interested in speaking? And, you know, in some cases, don't be so quick to rush to the solution. I mean, certainly you can say, hey, look, we do have this solution. But, you know, with attention spans being so narrowly focused these days, the key is the easier, you know, there's so many subliminal cues that our brain picks up on. I have lots, especially when I talk about objection handling or discovery. I have a whole bunch of videos and content on my site about this. Simple things like the word, I'll give you an example, like the word because. You know, everyone's trying to figure out what the secret formula is for handling objections. And there's a great book. I'm actually looking at my bookshelf. I'm going to pull it off the bookshelf now, actually, so you can see it. It's called Yes, 50 Scientifically Proven Ways to Be Persuasive. One of my favorite books. I do actually outline this on my website. I have a post on my top sales reads, and this is one. And it talks about the word because as this magical trigger word. And they've done all sorts of experiments that whenever you use the word because in a sentence to handle an objection, even if the rationale is poor, the impact is magnificent. Because when I say the word because in a sentence, it means that the thing that I say after the word because is the explanation for the thing that I said before the word because. And so it's a trigger word. And it happens subliminally. And the key is with the infomercial formula is that it does exactly the same thing. It leads someone through this methodical thought process where all of a sudden they are picking up the phone, they're ordering the chia pet or like the Nutra, you know, the Nutra blender when they hadn't intended to do it in the first place because like, oh, like my brain is telling me this makes total sense. I have this problem. I've tried these solutions. All right, why not? I'm in. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, if you're using like a cadence product or a way to organize your email, you're going outbound, you're really trying to find people that may potentially have the problem that you're talking about. And so you could load it up with like 10 different problems, and if they don't have problem number one, maybe they have problem number two, maybe they have problem number three. And then just, nobody likes those emails with 25 different lines. So just one line, and speaking with people like you, here's the problem. And the current solution sucks. And, I think we should talk about making this better, and boom, 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 boom. And eventually, if they pick that up and they go, yeah, I do have that problem. And yeah, the way that I'm dealing with it now really does suck. Okay, dude, I'll take the call. That's what you're trying to get to. So
that's right.
Yep.
And the idea is not to, you don't have to convert them. Like you don't have to, now, infomercials, the whole idea is in that half hour, however long it is, they do need to convert you. You need to call and take an action. Mm-hmm. But the purpose in business is not necessarily to sell them. It's to sell them on the next step. Is it worth having a conversation? Because we should be so lucky to be able to, orchestrate half-hour sales cycles. Maybe some people can, but you want to be able to have that next conversation. Again, think of it. This is, another probably blog post in the making, but like, again, you're driving down the highway and there's all these off ramps. As the seller, I don't want you as the buyer to take the off ramp. And so this formula keeps you on the on ramp, and it earns me the opportunity to pitch my product and to evangelize the benefits of it and to take you through all the details. But at the outset, I don't really care about the details if you don't have a solution to the problem that I'm trying to solve.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's starting a conversation. I guess it really depends on how big your ACV is, but in some of these, you might be talking to these accounts for years and years before they actually want to move forward. In some of the higher velocity sales, brokering a quick meeting and closing a deal might happen. But, to your point, Dave, it's planting the seed, and it's almost selling like links of a chain. The first one is just, will you, engage with me? Will you talk to me? And then am I adding value eventually to a point where we could do a transaction?
Yeah. Well, look, and the great thing is, as you move through the sales cycle, typically in today's complex selling environment, we get introduced to more and more people, right? So now all of a sudden you're dealing with, the EVP of something later on in the sales cycle. And when you deliver the infomercial formula, it's no longer this abstract concept. You might say, hey, you want to lose weight and get in shape, right? Well, the best way to do that is go to the gym. From speaking to Dave earlier, he told me that the gym is actually 50 miles from his house, and it's only open during the times where he's at work. And so now I've made the infomercial pitch a lot more personal and specific. So do not give up this formula. Keep refining it as you work through the sales process, and you'll find it will be very effective for you.
Great. I love it. Yeah. And definitely give it a try. See how it helps, and then leave your notes in the comments. Let us know, how it's working for you, and what success or unsuccess you had with it, and we'll go from there. I'm again David Dulany over at tenbound.com, and Dave, I know you mentioned some of your articles. Best way to get in touch with you is over at CerebralSelling.
CerebralSelling is where it's at. There's a ton of articles that I've been compiling there over the years, and they're all free. There's tons of videos, podcasts, so by all means go and check it out. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe.
I love it. And I'll check over here to see if we've got any questions or any Q&A from the audience. I think we're good to go here for now. So Dave, thanks so much for introducing us to this concept. I think it's been super valuable, and we'll definitely go check out CerebralSelling. Thanks again.
Right on. Thanks, Dave. Take care. Bye-bye.